I was 6 years old when I went thrift shopping for the perfect red button-up sweater to play the role of Annie in my after-school production. I slipped it on over my oversized dress, braided my hair, hoping it would hold somewhat of a curl, and eagerly smothered myself in chalk and dirt. In that moment, I wasn't just playing dress up. Putting on that costume made me feel more like myself than ever before. Throughout my life, I played many characters in musicals, and time after time, I experienced the same thing. I felt most like myself when I was in costume. Why? Because the costume and makeup gave me permission to express my inner self, to step beyond my everyday persona and explore different aspects of who I was, what I wanted to feel, and how I hoped to exist in the world. Ironically, this mechanism of costume and makeup allowed me to truly feel free. Not exposing myself in my regular clothing and demeanor allowed me to tap into something deeper, to engage with emotions and experiences I might not have otherwise explored. And that deeper emotion translated into me connecting more deeply with those in the audience. The costume was a tool to connect myself with myself and with the people around me. In this week's Parsha, we get what Aviva Zornberg calls the second revelation, where God reveals only a small part of God's self to Moses. In the last revelation, in Parshat Yitro, God exposes all parts of God's self in full force, causing the Israelites to tremble. And for many, revelation was too much to bear. But in this second revelation, in Parshat Ki Tisa, Moses experiences a more intimate encounter with God, a moment where God's hiddenness paradoxically allows for an even deeper revelation. So what did God reveal? Our Torah says that God reveals God's back. But the commentators explain that it was not necessarily God's literal back. Chizkuni said that what Moses saw was an echo of God. Or Chaim interprets that God surrounded God's self with a curtain or a screen to diffuse the divine light. The echo, the curtain, the screen, these were God's costumes. The full force version was too much for human beings to comprehend. But what were God's costumes revealing? What did God really want to express? Aviva Zornberg suggests that perhaps what God is doing in this moment is actually teaching Moses to pray. She says, the vision of God as he teaches Moses the art of prayer is one of praying enveloped in talit. God, that is, models prayer to God. I shall call on the name of God in your presence. Moses thus sees the enveloped figure of God. He does not see his face and hears the voice of human prayer, a voice out of thin silence. Even God needs to be enveloped in garb of holiness in order to reveal God's deeper self. Rashi offers a perspective similar to Aviva Zornberg's. He says that God reveals God's back in order to reveal the tefillin knot that rests behind the head. God is being a model of how wearing sacred garments is not just something to hide behind, but it should be embraced in order to open oneself up to more. God is teaching us how to be in relationship both with one another and with God. When I began my student pulpit at B'nai Jeshurun, what I wanted the most was to be the most authentic and open version of myself on the bima. And I wanted to be able to create intimate relationships with the kahal and with God. But my background in performance made me anxious. I wanted to do the opposite of perform. I thought that performance would be a mask, something that would get in the way of creating relationship with God in the community. So I tried to unlearn everything I knew about performing, to forget about the quality of my voice, my singing voice, to let go of my breath support, to tone down my facial expressions. I thought I should not dress up at all. And with the absence of these tools that I used in performances, I got up to the bima and I froze. I had unknowingly gotten rid of the tools that led me to feel like the most free and expressive version of myself. What I was left with was too raw. I thought that being authentic meant to strip away the performative, but what I realized was that I was wrong. I was given the opportunity to learn from my mentors that these tools weren't necessarily barriers, but they were pathways. They were the tools I needed to truly connect with the community and with God. So I recognize that many of you, or many of us, are allergic to the word performing in the context of prayer, and that it comes off as inauthentic. And in some cases, yes, absolutely, absolutely. Dressing up or wearing a metaphorical mask to the point where we don't recognize ourselves, or it's just for flash, does not automatically bring in the authentic self. It is when these tools are used skillfully and for the purpose of connecting with ourselves and with others that they can be the most effective. We are about to go into the holiday of Purim. Time for costume and being someone who we are not. When we wear a mask, we might feel liberated from societal's expectations, free to express part of ourselves that we usually keep hidden. When we dress up, we can embody emotions that we normally might not otherwise tap into. We can dress up as Esther and embody courage or vulnerability, or dress up as a favorite rock star and embody fun and joy. Oscar Wilde said, "Man is least himself when he talks in his own person. Give him a mask and he will tell you the truth." On Purim, we may think we are hiding behind costumes, but how can we use them as tools to express our truest selves? When I put on my red sweater as a child, I was not just pretending. When the Kohen Gadol isn't pretending when he puts on the priestly garments, we are not pretending when we put on the garb of talit and tefillin. We are unlocking a part of ourselves that's actually the most real. May we embrace authentic expression, not as a removal of these aids, but as an engagement with them. May we, like Moses, seek to see God's presence while understanding the power of intentional revelation. And may we find in tradition and prayer and even in costume the fullest expressions of who we are meant to be, so that we can build truly intimate relationships with our community and with God. I'm grateful to the Javich family and memory of Lee, and I could not have had the education and the opportunities without the family's generosity, so thank you. And I want to thank my mentors, Rabbi Roli and Felicia, along with my senior sermon mentor, Rabbi Katz. And lastly, I want to thank my friends, my family, my classmates, my teachers, my deans for supporting me on this journey. I couldn't have done it without you. Kaddish Derabanan, page 13. Yitkada v'yitkadash meraba, be'elma divra kirute v'yamlich malchute, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chay zechol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevorach le'elam umei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei kuresha b'richu, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תשבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירם בעלמא ואמרו אמן. על ישראל ועל רבנן ועל תלמידי הון, ועל כל תלמידי הון, ועל כל מן דעסקין באורייתא, דיבתרא הדין ודי וכל אתר ואתר. יהא להון ולכון שלמה רבה, חינא וחיסדא ורחמים, וחיים אריכין ומזונה רוויחה. ופורקנה מן קודם אבו הון די ושמיא ואמרו אמן. יהא שלמה רבה מן שמיא, וחיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא ברחמיו יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן.
Amen.